Hello everybody. We're in the Thanksgiving season, my favorite season of the whole year, and we have so much to be thankful for, all of us in our own lives. But right now I'm going to show you how to make my favorite fudge, and it's called old-fashioned fudge. It's the type of fudge I grew up on, and I remember a cousin of mine that I was visiting in the state of New Mexico where my mom grew up. I have so many cousins, and I was visiting, and we were trying to make this fudge. So you're going to need powdered cocoa. You are going to need a thermometer, which we didn't have, and we struggled to make it and didn't come out. It came out like a taffy. We ate it, it was good, but it wasn't the way it's supposed to be. So in those days, there was no marshmallow cream recipes. It was just old-fashioned fudge made with cocoa. So that's the one I'm going to show you today. And last year, I have 3 different fudges I made, and they're all really good. This is the one I never did get to. And it's my favorite fudge because that's what I grew up on. And it has its own special consistency. So you will need a thermometer in order for it to come out right, or you'll get that soft point that you put in the water, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the right way with the thermometer. So it isn't difficult to do. I really hope you enjoy this recipe. It's been around for many years. These are all the ingredients that you're going to need to make this old-fashioned fudge. You're going to need 3 cups of granulated sugar. You're going to need 2/3 a cup of Hershey cocoa, the powder. You're going to need 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And 1.5 cups of evaporated milk. You're going to need the thermometer. You're going to need 1/4 cup of butter and nuts. I'm using pecans. You can use walnuts. And you're going to also need an 8x8 or a 9x9 inch greased pan. I greased my pan and put some parchment paper around it. You could do that or just grease it. Okay, you want to get a nice pot to cook your fudge in. This is 2.75 quarts, and what you want to do first is get yourself a wooden spoon, add your 2/3 a cup of cocoa powder to your 3 cups of sugar. Then you're going to add your 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and you're going to mix all this together. And you don't want your thermometer the glass part to touch the bottom of the pot, because it won't measure the actual candy. It'll just measure the bottom of the pot. So what we're doing right now is stirring all your dry ingredients together, which is your sugar, cocoa powder, and salt. And once we kind of get all this mixed, we're going to add our 1.5 cups of evaporated milk. And let's do that. And you don't want this on high, you want it on a medium high. So what we're going to do is stir this around, and we got to get it all mixed together. And once everything's mixed together, this will come to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, you're not going to stir it anymore. It will have to reach 234 is considered softball stage, but I'm going to bring it up to 240 on my thermometer just to make sure it's cooked at the right temperature. It can go anywhere from 234 to up to 240, and I want it at 240. So I'm still stirring it. Okay, we're still stirring this around. You want to reach 240 degrees. But it has to come to a boil first, so I'm still stirring it right now. And once it starts boiling, then I will take the spoon out and stop. You want a wooden spoon always for this. You want to make sure all the edges, that you get all that cocoa powder kind of combined. And like I said, once it comes to a boil, you're going to leave it alone and let it reach its temp. Here it's starting to boil, and it will be a rolling boil. So I'm just going to leave it alone until it reaches 234 to 240. Okay, here we are. We've reached about 239 degrees. So you can tell by how thick it is and the consistency that it's ready to be taken off the stove. So this is what it looks like. It's real thick. It's gone down really low on the pot, and that's when we're going to do the next step. But it has to be taken off the stove. What you're going to want to do is put your 1/4 cup of butter in, and your teaspoon of vanilla, which I didn't mention the amount earlier, but now you're not going to stir it, you're just going to leave it alone. And what you want to do now is let this reach room temperature, and it'll be about 110 degrees, but you're going to wait a while. It's going to have to really cool down. And after that, I'll show you the next step. So this is what it looks like after maybe 10 minutes. It's still not cooled down. It's right about 170 degrees, and you want it down to about 110. So we're still waiting. It's not ready to stir yet. If you want this to cool down a little quicker, you can take it outside. I'm out on my front porch, and I'm going to let it kind of cool down out here. Do not put it in the refrigerator. It's not supposed to cool down that way. Okay, I just brought it inside and by the window because I'm going to leave it inside now. Still trying to get it to cool down. Okay, we finally got to a low temperature, to a room temperature. And it is the longest part of this fudge, is having it cool down. So now what you're going to do is you're going to beat this. You can see it's got a gloss, a luster, a sheen. We want to beat this until that goes away. And when it starts getting a little thicker, we're going to add our nuts. And I'm using about a cup of pecans chopped up, and you're just going to keep beating this. And we can actually, since it's gotten pretty thick, I can just add the nuts in right now. And I'm going to stir this until the glossiness goes away. And that's when you know you'll be able to put it in your pan. So I'm going to keep stirring this, actually beating it. So here's our fudge in our pan. We're going to let this set for a bit, and we'll be back. It turned out, it's not the prettiest looking old-fashioned fudge I've ever made, I'll be honest with you. I've made much smoother ones. Now, it turned out, but not perfectly. So usually when I make it, it can be between 234 and 240 degrees, and I really should have taken it off when it was less than 239, like maybe 234 is better, because there's a fine line between cooking it a little too long and it was, you know, a little too thick, but it still has a grainy texture, which is what I like. It's just not very pretty. And this is what the old-fashioned fudge has. It's got a really kind of a consistency that I really like, that stands out from the other fudge. So it's really good. It just isn't one of my prettier fudges. So if you want to give this a try, as soon as it starts thickening and it's like 234, 235, I would take it off then. So I hope you give this a try, and I hope it turns out great.